I caught my husband cheating on a Monday morning. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was that he looked relieved when I found out. I stood frozen in our tiny apartment living room, the coffee I had been holding spilling across the floor, dripping between the cracks of the hardwood. He didn't even bother to look guilty, just shrugged, lips curling into that half-smile I once thought was charming, and muttered, "It just happened. It just happened." Like our vows hadn't been real. Like I hadn't traded in every ounce of my faith, my body, my future, to build something with him. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to tear the gold band off my finger and throw it at his face. But instead, my chest caved inward, crushing me from the inside out, and the silence between us felt louder than any explosion I could muster. The man I had promised forever to was sleeping with someone else. And not just anyone, his college professor. The irony hit me days later when I finally pulled myself out of bed and dragged my body into the sunlight. His professor. The one he'd claimed was just a mentor. The one he praised endlessly for his intelligence and compassion. The one who wrote letters of recommendation and gave him books to read over the summer. I had hated how his eyes sparkled whenever he talked about the man, but I told myself it was admiration. That's what spouses do, right? They trust. But now trust was a corpse in the middle of my chest, rotting and heavy. When I showed up at the campus, it wasn't to confront the professor. It was to return my husband's things, the sweatshirt he left at our place, his notebook still full of scribbled equations and half-drawn diagrams. I told myself it wasn't about seeing him. I told myself I just needed closure. But even I didn't believe that lie. The professor's office smelled faintly of old books and coffee. The man sitting behind the desk looked nothing like the villain I had imagined. His dark hair fell a little carelessly across his forehead, his glasses slipping down the bridge of his nose as he wrote notes with an almost obsessive focus. He wasn't smug. He wasn't arrogant. He looked tired. And when his eyes finally lifted to meet mine, there was no triumph in them, only sadness. "You're Daniel," he said quietly, as if speaking my name might break me. I hated how my chest tightened at the sound of it. "Yes," I managed. My voice cracked like I hadn't spoken in years. "And you're the man who ruined my marriage." He didn't flinch. He just sighed, removing his glasses and setting them gently on the desk. "No," he said, and his voice was steady, honest, like steel wrapped in velvet. "Your husband ruined your marriage. I was just too blind or too selfish to stop him." The words stung because they were true, and for the first time since that morning I felt seen. I should have walked out right then. I should have slammed the door, cursed him, spit in his face, anything to protect the little dignity I had left. But instead I stayed. We talked. At first, in clipped sentences, me lashing out and him answering calmly, respectfully, never once trying to justify what had happened. Then, slowly, it turned into something else, questions about why I had married so young, confessions about how lonely academia could be, stories about his childhood in Chicago. I found myself listening, really listening, to the man I had sworn I would hate forever. And somewhere between the sound of his laughter and the way his eyes softened when I spoke, I realized I wasn't just listening. I was feeling. Terrified me, because how could I look at him and not see betrayal? How could I sit across from him, my husband's professor, and find comfort in his voice? And yet, the ache in my chest quieted every time he leaned forward, as if my broken pieces were rearranging themselves in the warmth of his presence. The first time he touched me, it was nothing dramatic, just a brush of his hand against mine when I went to grab my jacket. But my body reacted like I had been starved for years and someone had finally offered me food. I pulled back, heart hammering, shame burning across my skin. "I can't," I whispered, half to him, half to myself. "This is wrong." His eyes met mine, deep, steady, unflinching. "Then tell me to stop," he said softly. "And I will." But I didn't. Instead, I stood there in the quiet of his office, my chest rising and falling too fast, my throat tight, and realized that maybe wrong and right weren't as simple as I thought. Maybe love was less about rules and more about recognition that startling, undeniable moment when you look at someone and know, against all odds, that they see you. And God, he saw me. I went home that night to an empty apartment, my husband's absence now permanent, his toothbrush gone from the bathroom, his side of the closet stripped bare. I should have felt grief, but all I felt was a strange, dangerous kind of hope. Because for the first time since everything shattered, I wasn't just surviving. I was beginning to want again. The nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake in that half-empty bed, fingers brushing over the sheets where his body used to be, and I'd wonder if I was just transferring pain into another form of longing. Was I falling for the professor because he was truly differenter, because I needed something, someone to fill the silence? But then came the evening that changed everything. I had agreed to meet him at a small cafe near campus. The rain came down hard that night, coating the windows in silver streaks, muffling the hum of the world outside. He sat across from me, hair damp, glasses fogged, his coat still dripping from the storm. And when he smiled at me, hesitant, gentle, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed, I felt warmth break through the cold that had lived in me for weeks. "Daniel," he said softly, his voice carrying over the clatter of cups and plates. "You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't even owe me your time. But if you stay, I promise you, I'll never make you doubt my heart." The words knocked the air from my lungs. They weren't flowery. They weren't rehearsed. They were raw, steady, and real. And for the first time in my life, I believed a promise. I reached across the table, my hand trembling, and his fingers curled around mine like they had been waiting all along. It wasn't the beginning of something reckless. It was the beginning of something true. Of course, it wasn't easy. The whispers started the moment people saw us together, the husband and the professor. Scandal wrapped in human form. My ex didn't make it easier either. He showed up one night at my door, eyes wild, voice dripping with venom. "So this is what you wanted all along?" he spat. "Sleeping with my teacher? How pathetic can you be?" I should have shouted back, should have thrown all his lies in his face. But instead, I just looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing. No fire, no ache, no grief, only release. "You threw away what we had," I said quietly, "and I've stopped waiting for you to come back to it." His anger fizzled in the silence. He left without another word. And for the first time, I closed the door without fear of it opening again. The Professor Ethan, as I now let myself call him, didn't try to fix me. He didn't rush me or drown me in promises. Instead, he gave me the kind of love that was patient. If I needed space, he gave it. If I needed arms around me, he held me until the world stopped spinning. With him, love wasn't a performance. It was a quiet, steady presence. But love also meant risk. Ethan worried about his career, the inevitable gossip, the judgment of colleagues who wouldn't understand. Some nights he confessed his fear that being with me might cost him everything he had built. And every time, I asked him the same question, "Then why stay?" His answer never changed. He'd look at me, eyes burning like fire behind glass, and whisper, "Because nothing I've built matters if I lose you." The turning point came months later, at a small gathering where mutual friends and faculty were present. The tension was thick in the room when we walked in together. I could hear the murmurs, feel the stares cutting into us like knives. My chest tightened, panic threatening to swallow me. Then Ethan's hand found mine under the table. He didn't care who saw. He didn't hide me. And when he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear, he whispered, "They don't define us. We do." That was the moment I knew this wasn't just healing. This was love. Spring came, and with it, light. We spent afternoons walking through parks, evenings cooking together in the small kitchen of his apartment, nights wrapped in each other's arms as if the world outside didn't exist. The wounds I carried slowly faded into scars, reminders of where I had been but no longer chains holding me back. One night, as we sat on his balcony, stars scattered across the sky, he turned to me with a nervous smile. "I don't want to rush you," he said softly, "but I need you to know something. You were never a replacement. You were never a mistake. You're the reason I believe in love again." My throat closed, tears burning at the corners of my eyes. I reached for him, cupping his face in my hands. "And you," I whispered, "are the reason I know love is real." We kissed under the night sky, not out of desperation, not to forget, but to remember. To remember that even broken vows and shattered trust couldn't stop love from finding its way back to us. I once believed my story ended with betrayal, that my life would always be defined by the morning I found my husband in another's arms. But I was wrong, because sometimes love isn't about who you start with, it's about who stays, who chooses you when everything else falls apart. And Ethan chose me. Every single day he chose me, and in the quiet of his arms, I finally understood. True love wasn't about vows spoken in front of an altar. It was about the vows two hearts keep, silently, unbreakably, when no one else is watching. And those vows? They were ours. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.